of the day. When you get an opportunity in this game, you make a play. The playmakers on three. 1, 2, 3.
Touchdown, Kansas City! The Chiefs are right in the thick of it, baby!
Well, hello, everybody. We're back. This is Defending the Kingdom. Mitch Holthus with you, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter Matt McMullen. It's been a couple of weeks, a euphoric couple of weeks, Matt, and we have enjoyed the celebration. However, this episode will be entitled Flip the Page as we look forward now to get started all over again. But before we do, we need to take a couple of minutes to just kind of revel in what happened. And the incredible Super Bowl 57 victory, the story. And honestly, I think the best thing that 65 TPT's ever put out is episode 14 of the franchise. If you have not watched it, go rent a theater, okay, and invite 200 of your closest friends. Or maybe you can't do that. But anyway, watch it, because that puts in a capsule of what the experience was like to win Super Bowl 57 and the aftermath.
Yeah, it really does a great job of capturing the entire story, and it's not just the game itself, it's everything that led up to the game, the months of work and preparation and hopes and dreams and everything that culminated in that amazing night in Arizona. I've rewatched the game probably 10 times now, and I'm guessing that's on the lower end of most Chiefs fans. I think a lot of people have probably watched it more than that.
Yeah, my father's had a dozen of it at least.
Yeah.
He's like, guess what I'm watching right now? It's like you're watching Super Bowl 57.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
It's just, it was just amazing. And one thing I said all season long, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's even more true now, last season, for some reason, meant so much more to me than maybe even the 2019 season did. And I think in 2019, it was amazing. It was our first title in 50 years, but I wanted it so badly that I almost didn't know how to react once we won. It's like, we won. Now what do we do? And I think I was so focused on what do I have to do, what's my job. It all happened so fast that it was incredible, and it's something that I enjoyed immensely after the fact, but I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as I should have in the moment. And that was a mandate for me personally, that if we're able to do this thing again, I'm going to enjoy every second of it and make sure I relish the moment. And I certainly did that. And to think about the entire week in Arizona and to beat the Eagles, to do it the way that we did, of course, vintage Chiefs down 10 points at halftime and find a way to get it done. It was just incredible. And just for some reason, this one was just maybe even sweeter than the last one, even though the last one was our first one in a half century.
And, yeah, being down 10 at halftime, 1-26 were teams down by 10 at halftime of Super Bowls. It was only the Patriots and their great comeback against Atlanta, which we know how epic that was. But for the Chiefs to be the second team to do it, I'm with you on that. I don't want to slight Super Bowl 54 at all. All the guys on that team, that's a special team. This year, though, was different. And I think it's when it came oozing out, when I bellered it out after the Cincinnati AFC Championship victory, because there weren't doubts cast upon the 2019 team.
No.
It was more of a phenomenon, like, ooh, gosh, look at these guys.
We were new and exciting.
And exciting, and this one was, now these guys are going to be covered by volcanic ash, and they're going to finish fourth in the division. And what this team, the 2022 team, overcame, to me, made this different. And then the Super Bowl was just a complete microcosm of 6 months of what the team did.
Yeah.
And that's where you can doubt the Chiefs, you can dislike the Chiefs, you can just respect the Chiefs, you get to deal with the Chiefs. That's where all that came oozing out. And then to see the great joy, once again, of everyone in the Chiefs kingdom around the world to enjoy that championship. And then the historical markers of the fact that the Chiefs now are second in NFL history in a 5-year span, only behind the 03-07 Patriots, 77 wins. The Chiefs have 75 in 5 years. That puts it in historical perspective. And yes, as we've said, and you'll see in other shows that we've done that it's chronicled, the Chiefs are now, historically, not by opinion, but empirically, right there with the 70s Steelers, the 90s Cowboys, the 2000 Patriots, and here are the 2019-ish, 2018-ish to 2022 Chiefs.
And just there's something about being a two-time champion that is just makes you even more legitimate than you already were. There's a lot of teams that win the Super Bowl, and it's incredible, and they drift off into obscurity. The Chiefs are not one of those teams. The Chiefs are a team that has now won 2 titles in 4 years. This is a history stretch that we're seeing right now from this team. And the epic nature of this playoff run is just ridiculous. because if it was a movie, if you watch this on like Netflix or Disney or something, it wouldn't be realistic. We would dismiss it. Think about it. Like 9 minutes into the playoff run, Patrick Mahomes cannot walk. He's limping around. He comes back into that game after Chad Henne leads a 98-yard touchdown drive. Mahomes throws a touchdown to Marquez Valdez-Scantling on essentially one leg. One of my favorite plays of the entire postseason run that I think gets overlooked, and understandably so. It was in the divisional round, but throws a touchdown on one leg. Then there was all week of wondering, is Patrick Mahomes going to be able to play against the Bengals? And, of course, it's the Bengals again. The Bengals had gotten the Chiefs in 3 consecutive games, including last year's AFC title game when we had the big lead. They're coming back here, and they want to go back to the Super Bowl, right? They think they have unfinished business. Well, the Chiefs, we don't know if Patrick Mahomes is going to play all week. We think he's going to, but we just don't know. Then Travis Kelce pops up on the injury report, and it's like we just want our best shot at these guys. And despite all of that, they find a way to beat the Bengals in incredible fashion. And then we go to the Super Bowl, and we're feeling good. And then Patrick Mahomes gets tackled in the first half and comes up limping. And you start wondering, oh no, is he going to be able to do what he needs to do to win this game? And not only does he have what it takes, it's a 26-yard run on a bad ankle that puts the Chiefs in a position to win the game. I just can't get over the narrative of the playoff run and how incredible it was for the Chiefs. And to finish it off with a title and to do it the way that they did was just so special.
And a 13-yard catch by Marcus Kemp, who's now a Washington Commander, by the way, in like the most key moment when you're down to nobody else at wide receiver. You can't make it up. I mean, this is a movie, if you can cast Denzel Washington, Dennis Quaid, and Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, like you could just put all of them into this movie. It still wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't fit. So, yeah, it's a thing where fact is actually greater than fiction.
Yeah.
Now, I said around the world there was celebration of all you Kingdom defenders on the Super Bowl 57 championship, the third in franchise history. And, by the way, the other thing that's neat thing about the AFC West, all teams, every team in the division has 15 division championships. The Chiefs now tied the Raiders and Broncos with that third world championship. That being said, here we go. Let's go around the world. What do you have today around the world?
I've got 10 today. We're super backlogged because we got a bunch of submissions on our last episode, which was before the Super Bowl, but we'll try to catch up. But we have 10 today.
And 10 for the 10 years of Andy Reid, right?
Yeah.
This will be the 11th season coming up. But 10 years of Andy Reid, why not 10 around the world?
Yeah, or Isaiah Pacheco. Why not? Leading rusher in the Super Bowl goes from being the 254th overall pick in the draft to the leading rusher in the Super Bowl.
Down by 10 at halftime. We can keep going with this.
I love it. So we have Joe. He's listening from Murcia, Spain. Sean is in Montreal, Quebec, but grew up in Grandview. I've always wanted to go to Quebec. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting.
We need to have Lorraie Duvernay-Tardif lead us on that, have a tour. Because it is like France, right? The rest of Canada goes, Quebec's just different.
But you can drive there. Like I just feel like it would be like a teleportation experience. I don't know.
Yeah. Hit Quebec City while we're there.
Yeah. We have Devin in Vancouver, British Columbia, sticking in Canada. We have a listener from Kansas who's currently living in South Korea and watched Super Bowl 57 on Monday morning.
Nice.
Yeah, I love the commitment. Tony is in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. We have a listener in Dortmund, Germany. We have a listener in Boise, Idaho. They recently became a fan because their in-laws are from Peculiar, Missouri, and they got on board at the right time, I'd say. George is in Melbourne, Australia. His first job out of school was in Kansas City. He was here for a couple of years, went back to Australia in '94, and he became just a huge Chiefs fan. He was the only person in Australia wearing a Chiefs hat around, he said, but he stuck with the team, and now it's just the best thing ever because there's, of course, more football fans there now, and he's been with the Chiefs for 3 decades. So shout out to George. Mike is in upstate New York, and Andre is in Honolulu.
Love it. Love our Kingdom defenders everywhere. First one we've had from Spain, I think, isn't it?
Might be. Yeah.
I think we haven't had a Spain and lives in Puerto Vallarta. Really, how tough is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Things are going well for Tony in Puerto Vallarta.
I'm thinking Tony's doing okay defending the Kingdom in Puerto Vallarta. All right. That being said, it's the National Football League. And it'll be my 30th season in this league. And Matt, you've learned about this league, and you know that, hey, you celebrate. We've had incredible parade, championships, but the National Football League does not wait. It does not stop. And this episode of Defending the Kingdom, starting in 3, 2, 1, will be to flip the page. We are turning the page and starting the new year. So to do so in 3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
We have come with the proper attire.
If you're listening to this and not watching it, we are donning jerseys right now.
Yep. And we are putting on the I'm wearing the 20 jersey as you are listening, not viewing. So as you see it, you will see I am thanking Justin Reed for letting me wear his jersey, and you're thanking Joshua Williams for letting him wear yours, number 23, and I'm number 20, and you see 2023. Now we begin the 2023 season in earnest. We turn the page and start the calendar, and here we go, because the National Football League starts to hit warp speed after a bit of a respite. It now hits it hard. So as we're taping this on 8 March, the day before, you had to make, it was the deadline for making any kind of franchise or transition designation for potential free agents. The Chiefs did not exercise that on Orlando Brown Jr. Some of the league was doing some different things. Lamar Jackson got designated, but that's the first thing. But now really we start with the first of 3 segments we're going to break down on the calendar that you need to know with the National Football League, and it really gets into now the free agency period. And let's start first with what I think is one of the more peculiar 48 to 72 hours in professional sports, and that is the legal tampering period, right? Before free agent starts. The ball will drop in Times Square on March the 15th, right, as we begin the calendar year for the National Football League. So that's where you ought to stay up all night or afternoon or whatever and see the ball drop and start the year. But prior to that, and that's when free agency starts, and it's crazy, we'll get that in a second, is this time before it where you can actually start to negotiate with agents, with the team, and you kind of start free agency before free agency begins. To me, it's very peculiar.
Isn't legal tampering an oxymoron?
It is.
How can tampering be legal?
Your wife would go, what are you guys talking about? That's not even,
Well, and the reason they had to do it is because the league year begins at 3 o'clock Central Time on March 15th, but there was all these deals occurring a minute into the new league year, and everyone's like, okay, well, there's no way this deal was negotiated in 1 minute, so surely this is happening beforehand. So the league tried to find a way where you have a window of time where you are allowed to negotiate a contract and then sign the dotted line at 3 o'clock Central on March 15th. And it's fun if you get on Twitter and just hit refresh over and over again during that legal tampering period, and especially when the new league year kicks off on March 15th. You're going to see a lot of activity around the league. This shows what kind of student I was. When I was in college in my news reporting class, it was 2013 when Coach Reed had first come here, and we had all this cap space and all this hope, right, about the team that we're going to build for Coach Reed. And I remember the day of the new league year at 3 o'clock Central, I was just hitting refresh over and over and over again and seeing who the Chiefs got. And it's a fun time of year. The reality is the Chiefs are never super active in that first wave, but maybe they will be. We don't know. But the hardest thing to do in the NFL is sustain success. And the Chiefs have done that over 10 years now, and it's because we have the best coach in the NFL and Coach Reed, and the best general manager in the NFL, and Brett Veach, who's not only focused on the upcoming season and defending our title, he's also focused on 2024, 2025, and beyond. And how do you weigh that and balance that, making sure that you are contending this year, but also contending for years to come? And that's the balancing act that Brett Veach has here in the next several weeks.
So that's the first part of the calendar that you've got to be kind of fired up about, is that 48 hours. But then it really hits on March the 15th. That's when the NFL year starts. Now, there's a couple things that are, and that you've alluded to, that the Chiefs have done very well. And the first is you have to be under the salary cap. Now, the salary cap for 2023 is $224.8 million. So think $225 million here. The Chiefs and every team in the National Football League have got to be under that to start the new year. So some things happened recently. The Chiefs released Frank Clark. That gave them $20 million, basically $21 million of cap space. And they did not exercise a franchise tag on Orlando Brown Jr. That, in essence, saved another $20 million, although if you would have tagged him, that you're just putting back the $20 million that you saved with Frank Clark. So as it stands, as we record this, Chiefs are $17 million under the salary cap. Now, that could change. That's with 47 players signed. But that's the first thing that comes to mind here is you've got to be – everybody's going to hit the ground running here but and there are some teams that will make dramatic moves here over the next week, because it's basically, as we record this, you basically have a week to get under the cap to start the year. But that's where it becomes, if you want to hit refresh. And by the way, how'd you do in that class? You're in reporting, so I can actually do that. But if you're in biochemistry, if you're following free agency, hitting refresh, I'm thinking that doesn't work with the class.
Yeah, fortunately, it was news reporting was the class. And I actually think that class taught me more than any other class did, ironically enough, even though I wasn't paying much attention that day. Because it was like spelling errors and stuff like that, like accuracy, things that are generally important in our line of work. So it was a good class, but I was very distracted that day.
Okay. Well, whether you're in chemistry or you're in news reporting or you're not in class at all but you're at work, probably should be working, you can follow free agency when it starts. But being under the cap and managing the cap, this is what struck me, as you mentioned, about what we do so well here. Brett Veach and his own little army, who are outstanding and some of the best at the league. I say we win here because of 100 reasons. And one of the several of the 100 reasons is what Brett Veach does and how he does it. Because when you look at the salary cap, let's say the ball drops in New York City and the new year has started on March the 15th, and here we go. What's your cap look like? The Chiefs have always done an excellent job in the 10 years Andy Reid has been here and Brett Veach running it. You have to look at the cap 2023, 24, 25. You've got to look at the cap in snapshots, but you have to look in 2 to 4 year periods as you look down the road. Because it's the same as maxing out your credit card, and all of a sudden you've got a collection problem, and Bruno's at your door trying to break your legs. The Chiefs have always been able to look at the cap today, but then look at it in 2, 3, and 4 years, and it's why they've been able to win and stay out of cap Hades, if you will. And some teams are there right now.
And a big part of that is that the Chiefs took care of Patrick Mahomes and his contract as soon as they could. A lot of the news around the league right now, if you're looking at what's going on with Lamar Jackson or what happened with Daniel Jones, these are situations where it's very difficult to build your team when you have uncertainty at the quarterback position and you're waiting, you don't know what you want to do yet. The Chiefs took care of Patrick Mahomes as soon as they possibly could, and to Patrick's credit, he signed a relatively team-friendly deal where he said, I'm going to be your quarterback for 10 years. Not like a 3 or 4 year deal and we'll reevaluate in a couple seasons. 10 seasons I'm going to be your quarterback. And that gives the Chiefs the flexibility to know this is how much money we're paying our quarterback every single year for a decade. And it gives the Chiefs just so much flexibility and ability to maneuver and know what they can do every offseason. A lot of the teams out there that are trying to challenge the Chiefs are in a very tough spot right now. Mentioned the Ravens, but also the Bengals. They're going to have to pay Joe Burrow soon. So what do they do?
And Jamar Chase not long after that.
And T. Higgins, right? So they're dealing with an interesting offseason themselves. The Chargers with Justin Herbert, they're going to have to pay him very soon. So these teams are dealing with very tough decisions and a lot of uncertainty right now at the most important position in all of sports. And the Chiefs, who have won 2 titles in 4 years, just had 161 total games played by rookies last season, the most by a Super Bowl champion since 1981. So they have young players contributing, and they have their quarterback locked up. The Chiefs are in a very good spot right now, and it's up to Brett Veach to make sure that we take advantage of this time because it's not very often a championship caliber team has all these things working for them at the same time.
Yeah, but the Chiefs have never taken out the home equity mortgage to do some remodeling plan of your house and then being underwater in your mortgage like 3 months later. They've never done that, and that's something I've always appreciated with them, and I think that's why they've won. I mean, you mentioned the Chargers. As we're recording this, the Chargers like $28 million over the cap, so they got to make some drastic moves here. And with Patrick Mahomes and having the contract he has, he can always adjust it. Remember what Tom Brady did for years with New England. You can always kind of adjust that big, giant quarterback contract, if you will, to give you some short-term help. But if you don't have that big contract, you look at, they were all in with J.C. Jackson and Mike Williams. And
Khalil Mack.
I mean, they're just saying. But one thing the Chiefs have done, have been able to win and not destroy the cap. Now, that leads us to, speaking of maxing out your credit card, of what I call think of the Friday after Thanksgiving, and people are lining up to get the first, inside the store at 4 a.m., whatever, to go buy the newest thing they got to get. And then they call it Black Friday, right? The Black Friday of the NFL is basically the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th of March. It is this mad rush to many times overpay to get a free agent. and teams get real itchy, like we've got to make and get the big free agent, and that's where sometimes teams get into real trouble. The Chiefs have been able to jump into that market some, Justin Reed last year.
Yeah.
But the point is the NFL's in this mad rush for about 72 to 96 hours, and that's fascinating to watch, but it's also a very dangerous time for teams.
Yeah, it's about being strategic for a team like the Chiefs, and Justin Reed's a great example. You kind of let all the craziness subside a little bit and go get a very good player in Justin Reed, who had a lot of suitors out there and got a pretty big contract from the Chiefs. And you're like, all right, that's our big move for now. And we don't know what the Chiefs are going to do in the first couple days, but history shows us that they identify maybe a guy or two or nobody at all in that initial wave, and they say this is what we're going to do. But keep in mind that Carlos Dunlap, who had a huge impact on the Chiefs' championship season, did not sign in Kansas City until mid-August. Justin Watson, for example, who was on this team, made a bunch of contributions, didn't sign with the Chiefs until like early April, I believe. So lots of moves and signings and guys that end up contributing can happen later on, even if it's not in that first couple of days. So just keep in mind that if you don't see the Chiefs doing a whole bunch of stuff, and again, we don't know, maybe they will, but if you don't see the Chiefs do a whole bunch of things in that first 48 hours and a team or two is out shopping and getting all of the Twitter love about how they're winning the offseason, it doesn't always work that way, and the Chiefs have found a lot of success finding guys later on in the free agency period as well.
Yeah, just buyer beware in those first 96 hours of the land rush to get the high-priced free agents that will change your team, supposedly. Not saying they won't, but it can be cap problems down the line. The other thing is, while we're talking about things we studied, one of the things I studied was consumer behavior. Think about how the league is fascinated. The English Premier League and the National Football League are the two worldwide sports now, right? We talk about the world. We talk about around the world. But the league is conditioned to have one big event, a game every week, and then you talk about it the next week. And then you're talking about injury reports. And so we get conditioned to something has to happen within a certain period of time. So think about free agency. Even people who cover the sport nationally, this is so like the Orlando Brown Jr. deal. That means the Chiefs are moving on from Orlando Brown Jr. Maybe, maybe not. So during the offseason, you almost have to kind of change your thinking. If there's not always a short-term reason something happened. You can't think on 7-day cycles, and that's to your point, where you're going to get people in free agents in June, even later than that. In fact, some of your best bargains become later in the free agency period. But we're so accustomed to something has to happen. That's what this means. I'm going to put this on social media, and here's the reason it happened. It's like, no, it's not during the season. It's not something that's going to happen that leads to this definitive moment. And I think we have to almost retrain ourselves as fans to go, many times there's a long play in this. It's not just a weekly cycle.
And again, that's part of the balancing act for Brett Veach, is he doesn't only want to win this year. He wants to win for 5 or 6 more seasons. And it was kind of a trend in the NFL, particularly lately. Don't worry about draft picks. Don't worry about all this stuff. Just go all in. And that's great if it works. But look at the LA Rams right now. They went all in, and they won their Super Bowl. So it was worth it for them. But now they're dealing with a very difficult patch of time. So it's very difficult to keep winning in the NFL, right? You got to find ways to compete every season, but also think about years down the road. And you mentioned it. This is kind of the most dangerous time for any contending team because it can be very tempting to go pay somebody a bunch of money, but you never know if it's going to work out in the long run.
And there's a lot of fan pressure from the outside. Do something now. It's got to be done now. And sometimes you've got to run the long-distance run, right? You don't always run the sprint. And like you mentioned, the Broncos, they win Super Bowl 50. They've not been in the playoffs since.
Exactly.
So in the league, you've got to take care of your business today, but that doesn't mean that you just destroy tomorrow to take care of today. All right, the second part of the calendar now, that's the first part of the calendar, is this free agent period really up to the draft. Okay, let's talk about the draft here. Now, we're going to be in the weeds of the draft on succeeding shows here as you and I'll jump into it. But from free agency to the draft, it's this sprinkling in of free agents, new guys to your team, re-signing your own guys. So before we get to the draft, let's go into there are guys that you decide that you want back. And there is an extensive list for the Chiefs here. Who do they want back to be on their 2023 team? Every team has that around the league. If you look at every roster, every team's in that regard. But there are some guys on the list that you would like back if you're the Chiefs that right now are as we record this, are unrestricted free agents.
Yeah, so I'll run through our unrestricted free agents here. These are guys that on March 15th, their contracts will expire and they can sign with anyone in the league. And like you said, they could come back to Kansas City, but they are exposed to the rest of the NFL. So that list is Nick Allegretti, Blake Bell, Orlando Brown Jr., Michael Burton, Deion Bush, Carlos Dunlap, McCole Hardman, Chad Henne, who just retired, but he's still technically a free agent, Ronald Jones, Jerick McKinnon, Derek Noddy, Colin Saunders, Juju Smith-Schuster, Juan Thornhill, Justin Watson, Brandon Williams, and Andrew Wiley. So those are the guys that on March 15th, they are unrestricted free agents. The Chiefs have a handful of restricted free agents and also exclusive rights free agents. Those are complicated terms to basically mean that the Chiefs have the first right of refusal on a couple of players that are not included in this list. But when the free agency period starts, those are the guys to keep an eye on in terms of our own guys. Are they going to come back or are they going to sign elsewhere?
And there's a lot of wins on that list that you just mentioned, a lot of great plays on that list that you just mentioned. But here's the discipline the Chiefs have, and you must have in the National Football League. And this is the way you have to think. And if you're Brett Veach and working in collaboration with the coaching staff and Andy Reid, because Matt, and this is where the NFL gets tough, it's not what you've done, it's what you're going to do. What you've done, and if you've been a performer and performed at a high level, is what are you going to continue to do? And that's where this gets difficult. It's basically not a reward for what you've done. You can't do that in the NFL. And sometimes that can lead to some very difficult decisions. Frank Clark's one of those.
Yeah.
Right? But it's what you're going to do. That's why I've got to think at 2023, 24, and 25. And when you read that list of names, all guys that we both of us respect and like and have won with and won Super Bowl championships with, the Chiefs have to make a decision. It has to work out. Good for the player, but good for the team. And can that player continue to be better, even better than they've been in the past? That's the decision you have to make. And sometimes that can get lost on fans. And you have to be careful in that realm if you're a National Football League team.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And you and I feel this way, fans feel this way, and the front office feels this way. Like, we love these guys. I mean, this is a championship team. Every single one of those players contributed to a world championship. And you don't want to say goodbye to any of them, but this is also a business, right? And the guys understand that. They get that. And that's just the reality that this front office and this coaching staff has to navigate over the next several weeks. Who can we bring back at the right cost, and who do you have to bid farewell to? And Frank is part of that. I didn't mention Frank with those unrestricted free agents because Frank is technically a free agent right now. When you release a player, he can sign with anyone even before the new league year starts. But think about Frank's time in Kansas City. I mean, he's a Chiefs legend. Only here for 4 years, but I think it's fair to call him a Chiefs legend. He said that he wanted to win multiple championships at his introductory press conference in Kansas City way back in April of 2019, and he did it. He went to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them. And was just an awesome guy in this community and an awesome guy in this locker room for 4 years. It's very difficult to say goodbye to a guy like that, and it's going to be the first of a handful of difficult farewells, but that's just the nature of the business in the NFL. Everyone knows that. It doesn't make it hurt any less, though.
All right, the next part of the calendar will be the NFL draft, and it's going to be big because it'll be here in Kansas City. It will be festive. I wish we could invite all of our Kingdom defenders in from around the world to come here to the capital city of the Kingdom to enjoy that, because it will be a very interesting experience, I think, for the city and all of us in the Kingdom. But the Chiefs, incredible drafts the last 2 years. In fact, that's what's astonished the league. When you look at the draft of the 2 years ago, and to see that you get Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and Nick Bolton, the guys that are now pillars on your team, and that group last year, which set an all-time NFL record of playing 8 guys on defense and special teams in a conference championship game in the Super Bowl, all-time NFL record, and then others on offense like Sky Moore, and you throw in Darren Kennard. But now what can the Chiefs do with the 2023 draft? And there's a varied number. We know the Chiefs will have a 1, a 2, as it stands now, a 1, a 2, a 3, 2 4s with the Tyreek Hill trade getting another 4, and a 5. Now, the other picks become a little bit fluid based on what the Chiefs could get based on compensation, but still, that's a big part, and people know now, like I said at the 101 banquet when I introduced Isaiah Pacheco as the Mac Lee Hill winner, is a 7th-round draft pick. You and I have learned, pay attention to all 7 rounds.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the comp picks, as they're called, they come out probably in a few weeks. Those are based on what free agents you lost the year prior. There's a formula that's not actually public, so we don't know how it technically works, but the league will award extra draft picks in the coming weeks. So we'll have even more than we have right now. But I am reminded about the episode that we recorded last year right after the Tyreek Hill trade. And I kept saying what an opportunity this is for the Chiefs. They have to take advantage of it, but what an opportunity to be a team in a championship window and to have all these draft picks, and especially so many picks in the top 100, and to have an opportunity to not only be a very good team this season, but to create a foundation and a base of young players who can grow within this culture and keep this thing going for a long time. And I think you and I could not have predicted what a slam dunk that draft class was. It was incredible. We were hopeful going into it, and after day one, we were like, that was pretty good. But
we also saw glimpses, and that'll get into our last part of this, but we saw glimpses. We saw it as early as May with those guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they still have to go prove it, right? And think about the trials and tribulations that some of these guys went through. Guys like Sky Moore had the 3 muffed punts during the year. And no big deal. He just goes back there for the biggest punt return of the season for any team against the Bengals. And what does he do? Does he drop the football? No. He catches it and returns it 29 yards and gets the Chiefs on the doorstep of field goal range to beat the Bengals and go back to the Super Bowl. Think about all the other rookies that stepped up in that game. Joshua Williams had an interception off a tip pass by Brian Cook. Jalen Watson
after
had
being
an interception.
burned several times during the year. Jalen Watson getting burned. Then, it's incredible.
Isaiah Pacheco had a great playoff run, averaged more than 5 yards per carry in the postseason, and was the leading rusher in the Super Bowl, as I said earlier. For all these rookies to step up the way that they did, they're only going to get better. They created that foundation here for the Chiefs that this team's going to be very good for a long time. And now let's do it again with this draft class. Go get some more young players, bring them into this building. And it just draws the ire of teams that are going for the Super Bowl and the AFC crown, right? They're like, they can't keep doing this.
Well, when the tip-off came, I think, for you and I, and I saw it again as early as May, even the rookie minicamp, in talking to those guys, like, who am I talking to here? Like, these guys are emotionally and mentally mature. And, like, I told people, you would hire all these guys to work in your workplace, and it manifested itself during the season. So it was a truly unique group, but that lends itself to be part of that leadership cadre as you move forward. They're built for that.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting to see what they can do, and exciting to see how Brett Veach and his crew can add to that with this 2023 draft class, and that will be the last weekend of April here in Kansas City. All right, then we're going to lump in the last part of the calendar, and that is so phase one of the offseason training program is in that free agency to draft. But then after that, you get into where it kind of amps up a little bit. You have rookie mini camp. That's when they come in. You have kind of this rookie academy that goes on between May and June. Then you throw in phase two of the offseason training program, and that gets a little more intense. And then phase three, including a mandatory mini camp. Now, why are we telling you all this? Because it's something that you and I have noticed. That the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl 57 championship for a lot of reasons. A lot of it was the way Andy Reid was so good in April, and Patrick Mahomes and the leaders, April, May, and June in building the 2022 Chiefs, and why the calendar's important, even though maybe you're flying a kite or going fishing while the Chiefs are doing off-season training activities.
There are other teams and there are coaching staffs that do not believe in the value of OTAs, and that's been kind of a popular trend in recent years because a few years ago during COVID, a lot of that stuff was canceled. And then some coaches were saying, see, we didn't need it. We still had success without it. The Chiefs win in May and June. They have entire practices dedicated to certain opponents. They're working on these things months ahead of time. So when training camp rolls around or even in-season practices roll around, there's not a ton of new information being learned because they've already gone through the motions in May and in June. Coach Reid is a million things, but one of the things he's so good at, it's not just coaching and drawing up plays, it's how he organizes and how he teaches things. And there's this gradual increase in learning and in doing that by the time that you're doing it in games, it's second nature. You're not learning a lot of new stuff in even training camp. And that's why this team has been so good in recent years because they maximize every single minute. And you and I have a chance to watch it. We see what these guys are doing in OTAs. They're not just going to, do team building activities. That's important, but they're also learning and they're figuring little things out that are going to be the foundation for what turned out to be last year, a Super Bowl championship team. And also it's a chance for guys to prove that they belong here. So your first round picks, your second round picks, they're going to make the team. Everyone knows that. And OTAs are important because how do they mesh in with things? But think about a guy like Jack Cochran. Jack Cochran was an undrafted free agent out of the University of South Dakota, my wife's alma mater. Go Yotes. Jack Cochran made this team out of training camp as an undrafted free agent based on what he did in OTAs, based on what he did in training camp. He played in 15 games. Now, he didn't play on defense, but he played on special teams. He was one of the guys that was paving the way for Sky Moore on that punt return that set up Harrison Butker's game-winning field goal in the AFC title game. Little things like that make a difference. And if the Chiefs didn't maximize their time in the offseason training program like they do, I don't know if you find a guy like Jack Cochran. So it's a very exciting and fun time to follow along and see what is the foundation of this team going to look like. And that stuff is really built during OTAs.
And one thing that really makes this happen with this franchise in attacking this calendar that we just laid out for you is the fact that your biggest stars embrace it.
Yes.
You don't have a quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, going, I'm going to go to the International Cornhole Championships and skip OTAs. No. He's here. In fact, he's having his own. And when you get him and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones and now the new leaders of this team like Nick Bolton who embrace it and go, hey, this is important. Anybody that walks into this building, you'll be here.
Yeah.
Like you don't skip this step. That's how you win consistently and how you build championships. So it's time to flip the calendar. Yeah, we had good Super Bowl time. It was fun, whatever it's in there. But now it's time for 2023. And it's time for the Kansas City Chiefs to go after Super Bowl 58 and to go get another one. As Chris Jones said on the stage in the celebration, it's time to run it back. He's Matt McMullen. I'm Mitch Holthus. Keep defending the kingdom.
10, 5, touchdown! Lock it down! And the celebration begins at Arrowhead.